Today on the Big Six in 60, Nikola Jokic leads the Nuggets past the Rockets.
A much-needed win, a relieving win for this Denver Nuggets team.
The Bills sign Bradley Chubb.
A 3-year, $43.5 million deal.
And Syracuse basketball fires coach Adrian Autry.
Hallelujah, Syracuse fans.
This is the Big Six in 60, the 6 biggest national sports stories from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big Six in 60 starts now. Thank you for making the Big Six in 60 your first listen of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Nikola Jokic tallied another triple-double, and the Nuggets blew out the Rockets last night. Locked On Nuggets host Daniello Pirro recaps the win.
It is a big win, a much-needed win, a relieving win for this Denver Nuggets team as they get to their 40th win of the season. They're now 40-26 on the year. And this win is big for a number of different reasons. It helps clinch the tiebreaker for the Nuggets against the Houston Rockets this season. I believe if the season would have ended today, right, this is likely a playoff matchup rather between these two teams. That being, of course, the Nuggets and the Houston Rockets. And there's a couple of different thoughts. We'll get into some big picture thoughts about what this means for the team moving forward in the second portion of the show. But let's zero in on just the game as a whole here to get us started. And let's talk about what kind of turned the tide in this game for Denver.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
A couple of different ways that I think we can go here with respect to the turning point. I think it comes down to overall defensive intensity that we saw in this game. Again, holding any team to under 100 points for the Nuggets is a big win in my book, at least at this point in the season, and really with what this defense has been all season as well. But I think it was how they came out of halftime. And that third quarter, right, it was a relatively competitive game heading into halftime, but Denver really came out with some focus and awareness. The offense is always going to take care of itself. I understand that Denver shot the lights out tonight, over 50% from the field and 50% from three. You love to see that. Nikola Jokic another triple-double. Love to see that. Jamal Murray a 30-burger. Love to see that as well. But I think it was the defensive intensity and really just the attention to detail that we saw from Denver defensively and really just in totality coming out of halftime. I mean, for Denver to go out there and outscore Houston 40-22 in that third quarter, that essentially put the game to bed. They also outscored Houston there 36-24 in that fourth quarter. But it just looked like Denver came out with a level of focus that we haven't seen from them on a consistent basis, which is, again, I'll kind of get into our big picture thoughts on what this game might mean and what this win might mean for the Nuggets the rest of the way this season. But for tonight, it was just a much-needed step in the right direction. I think that's kind of the best way to put it, is you needed to see this from this Denver Nuggets team. Now, if I want to play devil's advocate and kind of take the glass half empty point of view, and I was saying this all day today at the radio station, I thought this was an expected win for the Denver Nuggets. I had a feeling they would come out and play uber aggressive and be locked in. And I see we got a comment here. We needed a win like this 100%. Denver needed this game. There's no such thing as a scheduled win. Sometimes people want to talk about a scheduled loss. I really felt confident going into this game tonight that Denver was going to win. I didn't think they'd win as convincingly as they did. I thought it might be a little bit tighter. But you also look at Houston being on the second night of a back-to-back, right? We all know what that means for NBA teams in this day and age. And so this just set up for me off the heels of the loss to Oklahoma City and how that game went down, how this season has kind of gone, especially since Jokic came back from injury, needing something to kind of hang your hat on. It felt like this would be the type of game where the Nuggets would come out and flex a little bit and show just how dangerous they could be. And I think that's exactly what we got here tonight in their 129-93 victory. I want to read this quote that Ryan Blackburn tweeted out before the game. I believe I bookmarked it on Twitter because it's from David Adelman, talking just about this season as a whole, how things have kind of gone down. I'll try to pull it up for you guys here in a minute as well. I thought I had it. Hold on. I thought I had it bookmarked, but I don't have it handy here. But point being, here it is. Okay. So David Adelman on Denver's status as a contender. This is from before the game. The quote is, "I'll sit here and say it all day and I'll take all the heat for it. We have to be patient with the process, even though we're late in the season, because that's where the season is, because that's what the season has given us. I'm not just going to be irresponsible and say I expect us to just be the best team in the league right now. He continues and says, but I do think we have time to be a major problem at the end of the year. So let's take this quote at face value. I agree. I do think the Nuggets have an opportunity to be a real problem. The issue I have with that quote and the issue that I have with the thought about being a real problem is like, that's the expectation. It's a championship or bust season. It is still a championship or bust season, in my opinion, for this Denver Nuggets team relative to the expectation of how this offseason played out and just the expectation heading into the season as a whole. There's a reason why you fire Michael Malone. There's a reason why you part ways with Calvin Booth. There's a reason why you trade Michael Porter Jr. for Cam Johnson. And Cam Johnson had himself a night tonight by his standard in respect to what this season has been for him. So I say all that to say this. This is a very good win for this Nuggets team, but I need to see more. So let's take it again at face value. They needed this win. It's a big win. It's a great opportunity. Try to build some momentum. They'll get right back after it tomorrow night against the San Antonio Spurs. And Denver finds themselves, that game in San Antonio tomorrow is the second of a 3 and 4. And I'm not going to go out here on a limb and project how that one goes. But again, this was a game that Denver had to have. And they took care of business in really convincing fashion, 129-93. You really can't complain about what you saw from Denver, in particular in the second half. Nikola Jokic with another triple-double. He finishes with 16, 12, and 13. 5 turnovers for the big fella. We know that's been a theme, but he's a plus 27 in the box, plus minus. Every single starter tonight, naturally, with the way that the game went, is not just a positive in the box, plus minus, but significantly in the positive. Jamal Murray, as we mentioned, he was on fire tonight in his 31 minutes played. 30 points from Jamal, 11 of 21 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3, dished out 4 assists, and grabbed a couple of rebounds. Only 1 turnover tonight from Jamal. You love to see that. Nice bounce-back game for Christian Braun. He had 19 points. You saw him being aggressive, hit a few big-time three-point shots in this game for Denver as well, and he played his role to a T tonight. That's the Christian Braun that Denver expected to get when they signed him to the contract extension in which he received in the offseason. Aaron Gordon had 0 points tonight in 22 minutes. We'll call that an outlier. And the reason why I'm leaving Cam Johnson last is because we have to have a discussion about Cam Johnson. We all know out here in Nuggets Nation, Nuggets fans alike know that Cam Johnson has been extremely disappointing relative to the expectation that Denver had for him when they traded him for Michael Porter Jr., when they traded for him, giving up Michael Porter Jr. and, of course, that first-round pick. For Cam Johnson to go out there and just play a solid game, an excellent game by his standard, again, from what we've seen from him this season. 17 points, 3 of 5 from 3, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, couple steals, couple blocks, and also just really picking it up on defense as well. And I think it was somewhere there midway in the third quarter, or maybe it was coming out of halftime. Cam's talking about, what he was asked, what's been the difference about the defense tonight and this and that. And he mentioned that it's just been focus. And clearly Denver was extremely dialed in coming out of halftime. And I think that ultimately really made a difference in this game here tonight. Again, Houston on the second out of back-to-back. A bit of this expected, at least in my opinion, but you needed to see this from this Denver Nuggets team. We know that this Denver Nuggets team still has these type of games in them. The season is not a complete lost cause. I understand it's been a roller coaster ride with peaks and valleys and turns and plummets and highs and lows and all those type of words that you want to throw out there to kind of describe this season. But hopefully this is the start of something to come. Hopefully this is the start of a little momentum boost for this Denver Nuggets team after being demoralized against the Oklahoma City Thunder. So you love to see what you saw on the court tonight. I mean, Houston, no players in 20-plus point territory here tonight. They held Durant to 11 points in his 26 minutes, 11 points for Jabari Smith. Alpi Sengun, who's one of the better players in the league, only 10 points tonight. Only 2 rebounds for Sengun as well. So, I mean, this was a very, very, very thorough victory for this Denver Nuggets team and exactly what you wanted to see off the heels of their most recent game leading up to this one tonight. And again, I think the defense, the intensity, everything that you saw, the adjustments from this team coming out of halftime, a breath of fresh air, much needed for the Denver Nuggets as they take down the Houston Rockets here tonight, 129-93.
College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings, and there's early tip-offs, and there's late-night West Coast shootouts. There's always action on the board, and now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits what's going on that night, whatever fits your mood in the moment. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then apply the profit boost and instantly bump up that potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
Welcome back to the Big 6 and 60. The 49ers made a trade with the Cowboys Wednesday, sending Osa Odighizuwa to San Francisco. To look at what the Niners can do with the 5-year vet, here's Locked On 49ers hosts Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker.
We had a big move. I don't think I really saw this coming at the beginning of the period, but there was some talk about Osa Odighizuwa potentially being available, and that smoke started to turn into a little bit of a fire, and it turns out the San Francisco 49ers got that deal done. They sent their 2026 third-round pick to the Dallas Cowboys for defensive tackle Osa Odighizuwa, 6'2", 280 pounds, fifth-year veteran from the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA player, and is a really interesting player. The sack numbers won't wow you if you go box score scouting, but I watched a lot of Osa Odighizuwa today, and I was very happy to see how much penetration and how often he is living in the opponent's backfield. And it's a little shocking, Croc, that the most sacks he ever got in a season was 4.5 sacks in the 2024 year. He had 3.5 sacks last year. For how much he wins and how much penetration he gets. And it's not like he's a short arm guy, Croc, that can't quite corral the quarterback when he gets there. He's got these long arms. He's got a 7-foot wingspan for being an undersized defensive tackle, which helps him fight through the trash and get into the backfield. He wins a lot, Croc. And I was surprised. Like, I thought I was going to see, after watching his tape, like the one season where it's like, oh, he's got 9 sacks here, but some of the years maybe just the sack numbers don't work out. Very consistent with sacks. He's about a 4 sack a year guy. He's about a 7 tackle for loss guy, but his pressures is ridiculous. He had 52 pressures last year alone, Croc, which was more than all of the 49ers defensive tackles combined, who had 47. So the 49ers needed somebody who could win as a pass rusher, could pressure opposing quarterbacks and get in the backfield. And that's exactly what Osa Odighizuwa is. And they're going to pay him $16.5 million, which is guaranteed in 2026. He's got non-guaranteed $20 million salaries the next 2 years. So 3 more years left on his deal. They don't have to pay a free agent signing bonus to Osa Odighizuwa, but they did have to give up a 3rd-round pick. So what does that cost tell you about the plans for Osa? And what do you know about Osa Odighizuwa, the player that the 49ers brought in?
Well, first, let's talk about that. The production or lack thereof at the defensive tackle position. And you talked about how he's having more pressures than the 49ers defensive tackles as a whole. But also, he's close to them in sacks as well. Last season, the 49ers, 4.5 total sacks from their defensive tackles. He had 3.5 by himself. So, I mean, it's a major upgrade from a pass rush standpoint. Now, heading into last season, you and I both know, as well as the fan base, that the guys that they acquired in the draft to be guys that played, really, all 3 of them, to be honest, between CJ West, Alfred Collins, and Michael Williams, all those guys needed to develop as pass rushers. So you bring in someone that says, hey, I don't need to develop as a pass rusher. I give you that. I think this is potentially a guy that's going to be more of a 3-down guy. Obviously, he can win in the pass rush, so he can rotate with guys. And maybe if you feel like some other guys are a little bit more stout and you want all that juice for your 3rd down or 2nd and long passing situations, I think he fits in there. But if you want to really know, is this guy good or not, you go to the group chat that I have with my brother and some buddies that are diehard Dallas Cowboy fans. And when this trade went down, I asked, hey, how is he? and they had nothing but positive things to say. And typically, if a guy isn't that good, you'll hear that from the opposing fan base. My brother and my buddy said, hey, essentially what his scouting report says. Man, he's a really good pass rush. He's going to start for you guys. Man, he has a super motor. And those are all things that you definitely want to hear from about an interior pass rusher.
Yeah, motor is something that you see on tape, and it's one of the number one keys that sometimes people don't talk about when scouting pass rushers is the motor. It's something that you have to have, and it's something that Osa Odigizua absolutely has. And he's going to be a really good player, I think, and a nice fit for the San Francisco 49ers. What exactly is the fit, though? That the price tells me that he's going to be a starter. So that's where I start to wonder what that's going to look like. It's Bosa on one side on the base defense, and it's Mykel Williams at the other end on the base defense. So if Osa Odigizua is the starter, is he starting next to the second rounder Collins from last year? CJ West is probably the better run defender than Collins, though. So if you start CJ West and Osa Odigizua at tackle, well, then when you go to sub, Osa Odigizua is definitely going to be on the field as that sub pass rusher for on the defensive interior. But then if Mykel Williams moves inside, now Collins is also still not on the field. So if West starts as the better run defender, Collins doesn't have a role on defense. So I think it's probably going to be West that's the odd man out. But if West isn't there on base downs and it's Collins and Osa, well, that means West doesn't have a role at all on defense, right? Because he's not going to be the sub package rusher either. And so I find that very interesting, unless maybe the 49ers say, well, I don't care. We're going to go big. We're going to go Bosa, Collins, West, Mykel Williams with the base. It's our best run defending unit. And we don't care about the price. We brought Osa in to rush the passer. So second and long, third down, that's when Osa is going to be on the football field. Keep him fresh, bring this thing in waves, and then Osa comes onto the field. So that'll be fascinating to see how the rotation goes. But the price paid tells me that they think that Osa is probably going to be a starter and a 3-down player, like you said, Croc. But then there's one more wrinkle in this thing. And this is, I think, the most interesting part of this, is they did a little flirtation with the 5-man front last year. And we know what the history, at least recent history, of new defensive coordinator Raheem Morris is. So if the 49ers are thinking, look, we need more pieces because we're going to do more of this 5-man front, well, now you got Collins, West, and Osa on the field at the same time, with CJ West being that nose tackle, and you can have Collins be the really big end. Osa can play that role. He did some of that with the Dallas Cowboys last year as a bigger end, and then you have Williams in base as an edge defending defensive end, and then Bosa on the other side, and that's a really big base in a 5-man front if you went that way. And then if you were more in the sub, it would start to look like your regular 4-man sub anyway, where you would bring in Bryce Huff or maybe a rookie pass rusher if the 49ers go that route, along with Osa and Bosa, and then one of the other tackles, probably Mykel Williams, moves inside, and maybe there's a rotation there. So it really works in both 4-man fronts, sub packages, pass rusher. It works in a 5-man front as well for Osa Odigizua. The question for me is who starts between those 3 defensive tackles in base for the 49ers. And I'm sure there's enough rotation, enough snaps to go around where guys will filter in.
And that's what I was going to say. Think of it like, J.R. Smith, right? One of those guys, Jamal Crawford.
Okay.
It was like, you're the 6th man. Like, you come off the bench, but you get starter minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That could be what we see in this situation where, Osa, he could kind of quote unquote come off the bench, but if he's getting the bulk of pass rush snaps and also going to be in there and run, snaps as well. And when you look at it after the game, you look at kind of like the snap distribution, and he's right there with the other guys or has more. I think that's a win. Ultimately, I think all defensive line coaches would like to have some rotation with their D line and want to absolutely keep everyone fresh. Now, you'll have the Nick Bosa where it's like, hey, Nick, you're not coming off the field. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But all the other guys have a nice little rotation to keep those guys fresh. I like it. Even up those snaps.
The Bills added to their defense Wednesday, picking up 2-time Pro Bowler Bradley Chubb after the Miami Dolphins let him hit free agency. Joe Marino has more on the addition on Locked On Bills.
The Bills are signing edge rusher Bradley Chubb to a 3-year, $43.5 million deal that can be worth up to $52.5 million, or at least that's the reported terms. Obviously, you always wait for the specifics. In case you don't know what I was referring to in the cold open, where I mentioned John Elway and how he would feel about Josh Allen and Bradley Chubb being on the same team, is because John Elway drafted Bradley Chubb number 5 overall in 2018, opening the door for the Bills to trade up and get Josh Allen. And since then, of course, John Elway has said, I wanted Josh Allen, but the staff, they were in on Bradley Chubb and they weren't convinced of Josh Allen. And so now they're on the same team. All right, so let's talk about Bradley Chubb. 3 years, $43.5 million. That is not a crazy amount of money. It's certainly a reasonable commitment, but it's not quite the massive overpay that maybe you would think Bradley Chubb would get on the open market. He does turn 30 in June. Of course, he was the 2018 number 5 overall pick by the Broncos out of North Carolina State University. And he was traded to the Miami Dolphins in 2022 for a first-round pick. And he's played in 90 NFL games, 48 sacks, 53 tackles for loss, 15 forced fumbles. He's been a good player, but injuries have been an issue. In 2019, he had a torn ACL that cost him the last 12 games of the season. He battled an ankle injury in 2020 and 2021. Eventually, in 2021, missed like the last 8 games of the year, missed a total of 11 games across those 2 seasons. Then in December 2023, he tore his ACL, which kept him out for the entire 2024 season. And then he was healthy this past season for Miami, played every game, had 8.5 sacks and 48 pressures. And so in his last 2 healthy seasons, he had 11.5 sacks and 8.5 sacks. But in between those 2 healthy seasons, he missed the entire 2024 campaign. And so the age and injury component is not a very attractive formula here as it relates to Bradley Chubb. I think the hope is that now that he's further removed from that ACL, that he'll elevate and, continue to find his form and make an impact for the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, with a 3-year contract, he's going to be an important part of the success of this defense moving forward. And so what I like about this move is that this is an experienced player that knows about odd front defenses. This is a scheme fit in terms of what Bradley Chubb has done throughout his career. And the Bills' need is obvious on the edge. Right now, of course, you got to look at like the 5 techniques and the 4 eyes is one thing, and then like your rush linebackers differently. And I think that Bradley Chubb will be more of a rush linebacker for the Bills. And right now it's Michael Hoyt off of an Achilles and Javon Solomon. So the need was really significant here. And it's a player that's experienced in this type of defense. Also, Bradley Chubb is an A++ person. I've spent a decent amount of time around him. When he was at North Carolina State, I probably went to, I would guess, every bit of 6 or 7 games as credentialed media, and had a chance to be in the locker room around him, to see him in pregame. And you could just tell it's just A+, like a leader, a tone setter. And I think he's been that way in the NFL. High character, super competitive, plays hard on every snap, right? There's nothing to question about the football character and the overall character of Bradley Chubb, and he's certainly a fit for the style of defense. What I don't like is pretty obvious. It's the same things you probably don't like. It's that he has an injury history that's concerning, and he turns 30 in June. Don't love it, right? Don't love that component. But I will say that the need here was significant, and the Bills take a pretty notable swing here. It's not the Bosa 1-year deal, right? There's a 3-year contract here, and I'm sure there's an exit ramp at some point, maybe after a year or 2. But the Bills make a pretty healthy commitment here to Bradley Chubb to come in and hopefully make a big-time impact. Now, I want to be careful to not say too much here, because I think this is a type of player where how I feel about the film is going to matter a lot, and I want to go back and thoroughly watch his 2025 campaign and gain a feel for where his skill set is at. I think the numbers are good. Like, he had 48 pressures and 8.5 sacks. That's pretty good for a defense in Miami that I think had some challenges. Chop Robinson wasn't what he was supposed to be. Jalen Phillips got traded. They had their corner challenges, and it's hard to be a good player on a bad defense, right? I think there was some redeeming qualities of that defense, particularly against the run, but their pass rush and their pass defense was a bit of a challenge. And I think that's harder for a guy like Bradley Chubb to stand out in the ways that he's supposed to. So I'm curious to really dive into the film. And of course, I will come back to you with all of my film thoughts from what that reveals to me. And I'll do a Substack post that breaks everything down like I just did for D. Alford. I spent all day. This is Wednesday, March 11th, all morning I was in the D. Alford tape, and I put out a 20-minute video to the Herd Mentality Substack of me breaking down all 22 film on D. Alford, and I'll do an episode on D. Alford as well, like really getting into what the film said to me. But for Bradley Chubb and kind of the overall context of this signing and what his career has been, I want to spend some time in the film and report back to you with how it makes me feel. So we will do that very soon, certainly by the end of the week, and we'll do the same for D. Alford. If you want to be part of the Herd Mentality Substack, please go to djoemarino.com. There's a link in today's show notes, and join the Herd Mentality Substack. That way you can see these film posts and get in on our Discord channel that has over 2,000 Bills fans in there. We've been talking all day about what's going on across the league and the Sabres and every other thing. So check out djoemarino.com. Get into that Herd Mentality Substack. Get into the Discord and be part of the community that's built around this show. And you'll get that film breakdown from me on Bradley Chubb. So Bradley Chubb, it's been a quiet start mostly to this free agency period, I guess. You think about the DJ Moore move, and of course they add D. Alford, but it took a while for the Bills to make their next splash, and finally they come through on Wednesday afternoon with Bradley Chubb.
College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings, and there's early tip-offs, and there's late-night West Coast shootouts. There's always action on the board, and now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits what's going on that night, whatever fits your mood in the moment. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then apply the profit boost and instantly bump up that potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
Welcome back to the Big 6 and 60. The Patriots needed some help in the secondary and got it in free agency by adding former Bears safety Kevin Byard. Nick Cattles gives his thoughts on the move on Locked On Patriots.
The Patriots have signed safety Kevin Byard to a 1-year, $9 million deal. Now, I know people will look at his age. Kevin Byard turns 33 in August, and they will say, what are they doing signing a guy who's creeping towards his mid-30s? My response to that would be, yeah, he's going to be 33 in August, but he was a first-team All-Pro this past season with the Chicago Bears. And as a matter of fact, Kevin Byard is a 3-time All-Pro in his NFL career. And when you think about adding Byard, we'll talk about what he brings to the table, but just from 30,000 feet, looking at this in this secondary, I've got to tell you, this secondary is arguably the best secondary in the NFL. When you think about the different components that they put together, the idea of having Christian Gonzalez, a top 5 or 6 cornerback in football with the potential to be a top 2 or 3 guy. Carlton Davis, a legitimate number 2 outside corner. Marcus Jones, in what he did throughout this past season on a new extension. He had his best year in the NFL. He gets to roam around. And then you look now at the safety spot. Craig Woodson, who got better and better and better as the year went on throughout his rookie season, was tremendous in the postseason. And now you have Kevin Byard to go along with Craig Woodson on the back end. This secondary is loaded with talent. This secondary, I would put against any secondary in the league. That's how good they are. Their ceiling is ridiculous. A nice mix and match of young and old, right? Craig Woodson to go along with Kevin Byard at safety. Christian Gonzalez and Marcus Jones to go along with Carlton Davis. Bridging the gap from generation to generation, but supremely talented. I don't know a quarterback in football that would be excited to go against this secondary. And I love Kevin Byard. I do. He's an absolute, no doubt, ball hawk. NFL researcher on Twitter posted, Byard led the NFL with 7 interceptions last season. But that's not just a one-year thing. That's not the anomaly with Byard. Byard also leads the NFL, the entire league, with 36 interceptions since being drafted in 2016. He will create turnovers. He will create big plays. Taylor Kyles posted that Byard was involved in more turnover-worthy plays than any safety in the league last season. Ball hawk. But he's not just a ball hawk. He's not just a guy who's going to create turnovers for your defense. He's also really freaking good against the run. His Pro Football Focus run grade was 82.6, which was 10th best at the position. So you look at safeties, 2 safeties. Some teams play 3 safeties. Byard was 10th defending the run. And let me go back to Taylor Kyles, who posted, Talanoa Hufanga was the only safety with more tackles for loss or no gain versus the run than Byard last season. And I really like Jalen Hawkins. I would have had no problem with the Patriots bringing Jalen Hawkins back. I thought he had a good, solid, steady season in 2025. But one of the weaknesses of Jalen Hawkins was coming downhill and trying to stop the run game. He missed tackles. And sometimes those missed tackles would come in bunches. So now you replace Hawkins with Byard and those missed tackles. And Byard shooting downhill like a missile to stop the run game, he is going to make that tackle. He is going to finish the play. And so I think that is an upgrade without a shadow of a doubt. The other thing about Byard, and again, he's going to be 33 years old in August, but he was a first-team All-Pro this past season, showing all of us he has enough left in the gas tank. The other thing about Byard is his ridiculous durability. We talked about Elijah Vera Tucker and the risk that you took by signing AVT. And the risk was the durability, the 3 season-ending injuries, 2 tricep tears, and, of course, the Achilles. When you look at Byard, this is kind of crazy. I had to double, triple check today. Guess how many games, I want you to throw it into the comments. Guess how many games Byard has missed over his last 9 seasons. I want you to guess how many games Kevin Byard has missed over the last 9 years in the NFL. Throw your comments in. We know Mike Vrabel. He talks about soft tissue injuries. He gets upset when guys have soft tissue injuries. Nightshade jumps in and says 15 games missed. Zell Slayer says 10 games missed. How many games do you think Kevin Byard has missed over his prior 9 seasons in the NFL? Anita says 0. Richard Boucher says 3. Gregory says 11. What if I told you that Kevin Byard has missed 1 game in the last 9 seasons? What if I told you that Byard has missed 1 game? 1. Over a 9-year period. It's crazy, right? It's absolutely crazy. This past season, started 17 games. 2024, started 17 games. 2023, he missed a game. He played for Tennessee and Philadelphia. He played 16 games. He missed a game. 2022, 17 out of 17. 2021, 17 out of 17. 2020, 16 out of 16. 2019, 16 out of 16. 2018, 16 out of 16. 2017, 16 out of 16. He's missed 1 game, and it happened in 2023. He's an all-pro, first-team all-pro, ball hawk, great against the run, durable. He's familiar with this system, playing for Mike Vrabel in Tennessee. Obviously, he knows what this defense is all about. Being familiar with the system means effortless transition. Should easily slide right in. He is a tremendous communicator. He knows how to communicate with his teammates, with his coaches. He knows how to set defenses on the back end. And he is no doubt going to be a Craig Woodson mentor. Again, now you have Woodson on the back end with Byard. And Byard is going to be able to mentor the young man. This is great stuff. He is an impeccable leader. Teams rave about him. Teammates rave about him. Albert Breer tweeted out about the Patriots signing Kevin Byard. Patriots land a battleship commander for their secondary. And you go back to Mike Vrabel speaking about Kevin Byard in October of 2023. Teron Davenport had this. Here's what Vrabel said in 23. I want to thank Kevin for what he means to me personally and to this team. When I arrived, he helped carry a new message into the locker room and established the mindset and work ethic we were trying to instill throughout the team. His play on the field speaks for itself. An intelligent and athletic player, he has led the secondary and helped us win a lot of games. Kevin and Clark and the kids mean a great deal to me, and I wish them success in all that is in front of them. Meanwhile, Jalen Hawkins signed a 2-year, $10 million deal with Baltimore. Good for Jalen Hawkins. Congratulations on that deal. But I love this. It's a 1-year, $9 million deal. You're not handcuffed long-term. And it is an immediate upgrade. Again, a first-team All-Pro last season. We're not talking 4 years ago. And so now you have this short-term deal with Kevin Byard. He helps Craig Woodson. You have an absolutely ridiculously stacked secondary. And I think you look towards the draft as well at this position. But I really like, I'd say I even love the move. Kevin Byard, the newest New England Patriot.
College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings, and there's early tip-offs, and there's late-night West Coast shootouts. There's always action on the board, and now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits what's going on that night, whatever fits your mood in the moment. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then apply the profit boost and instantly bump up that potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
Welcome back to the Big 6 and 60. Syracuse basketball went 47 years with one coach in Hall of Famer Jim Boeheim, but his replacement only lasted 3 seasons. The Orange fired coach Adrian Autry after no NCAA tournament appearances in his tenure, and Jackson Holzer goes over the decision on Locked On Syracuse.
Adrian Autry has been fired by Syracuse University. Then, not long after, you had ESPN's Pete Thamel report that John Wildhack made the call to let go of Adrian Autry, but the new athletic director, which still has not been named yet, more on that later, is going to be tasked with finding the next head basketball coach. And to that I say, hallelujah, Syracuse fans. It is very important that the new AD stepping in is the one that is ultimately hiring the next head coach of Syracuse basketball. So task number 1 is complete. It seems like Syracuse has done the right thing, which is good for all of us. But after 3 seasons, Adrian Autry is no longer the head coach of Syracuse basketball. The results, the final tally, they are in. Let's break it down here. He finishes with an overall record of 49-48, 24-34 in the ACC. 0 NCAA tournament appearances. He had 1 NIT qualification, which came back in the 2023-24 season. That was his first year with Syracuse basketball as the head coach. Remember, he was a longtime assistant and also played for Syracuse back in the 90s. But Syracuse declined that NIT invitation that year. 1 20-win season, same year, 2024. 2 under 500 seasons back-to-back from 2025 to 2026. The last time that Syracuse went under 500 in back-to-back seasons, you have to go back to 1968, 1969. My thoughts on this? Look, based on the results, this was the correct move. I don't think that anyone can really deny that anymore. We will break down later on in the show that it's not all on Adrian Autry, but the results speak for themselves. In 3 years, barely above 500, no NCAA tournament appearances, 2 consecutive under 500 seasons. They gave him 3 full years. They significantly upped their spending for this season. They eventually gave him a general manager to help him out with roster construction. Eventually, he had to start producing results, and he unfortunately did not. I wish him all the best. I thank him for his time here. He will always bleed orange. I understand that. We all understand that. But I think it is best for all parties involved that this is happening. And this is ultimately good for Syracuse to move on. He kind of reminds me of Kyle Neptune at Villanova, similar to Autry and how he had to take over for a legend in Jim Boeheim. So did Kyle Neptune taking over for Jay Wright. He also had 3 years at Villanova, and he could not get them to the NCAA tournament. And so last year, they moved on. And as we will discuss, hey, Villanova is back on track for this season. So overall, I am excited that this new era of Syracuse basketball is about to begin. As I have been saying repeatedly on this show for the past few weeks and the past few months, it has never been easier to get good immediately due to NIL and the transfer portal. It is no longer an era where you need to stack multiple good recruiting classes in a row in order to finally build up a program. Now, I am not saying that the next head coach of Syracuse in year 1 has to take the Orange to the Final Four, but they can be good right away. They can absolutely make the NCAA tournament next year with the right hire. Villanova, as I just mentioned, with Kevin Willard as their head coach, they are safely in the tournament field this year. We have seen Louisville get good right away. They let go of Kenny Payne. In comes Pat Kelsey. They're back in the NCAA tournament. NC State with Will Wade. I know it has not been a perfect season for NC State, but last year, that was a team that missed the ACC tournament. This year, it appears that they are safely in the NCAA tournament field. Virginia, that team was horrible last year, if you recall. They got blown out by Syracuse, of all teams, last year. Remember that? It was the final regular season game inside the Dome. It wasn't pretty for Virginia. Well, they bring in a new head coach, Ryan Odom, and according to the latest ESPN bracketology, Virginia is a projected 4 seed. Miami, they missed the NCAA, or not the NCAA tournament, they missed the ACC tournament last year. Bring in first-year head coach Jay Lucas, and he now has them safely in the NCAA tournament field. So if those schools can get good right away with first-year head coaches at their program, why not Syracuse? Why not us? Comment your thoughts in the comments section below, your reaction to Syracuse letting go of Adrian Autry after 3 seasons. Again, no disrespect. It was time. It was the right move. I wish Adrian Autry the best. As I said, I think a couple episodes ago, I do think he could go somewhere and be an assistant head coach and be an elite recruiter and do very, very well. Or maybe he goes to a mid-major school and he figures it out there and he rehabilitates his head coaching image and perhaps can get back into the power conference level. It's possible. I don't want to write off Adrian Autry just because it did not work out in 3 seasons at Syracuse, but it was time for both parties to go their separate ways. And it is finally a new era for Syracuse basketball. As earlier this morning on Wednesday, March 11th, it has been reported by multiple outlets that Adrian Autry has been fired by Syracuse University as the head basketball coach. What can we learn from this era? Now, I want to be very clear here. Even though Adrian Autry does deserve a lot of blame of what has happened over the past 3 seasons with this program, it is not all on Adrian Autry. Some of it is the powers above him. Some of it is the players themselves, which we have talked about repeatedly here on Locked On Syracuse as well. So there are plenty of things that we can learn, but I have narrowed it down to 3 things that we can learn from the Adrian Autry era. And the first one, for the next head coach, prior head coach experience is required. Not something that is useful, not something that is nice to have on the resume. Prior head coach experience is required to be the next head coach of Syracuse basketball. When Adrian Autry took over for Jim Boeheim ahead of the 2023-2024 assistant, he earned the job. He was a longtime assistant. He was an elite level recruiter. He was a player at the university. Hindsight is 2020. I understand that. But he had earned the job. He had earned the right to be the head coach of Syracuse basketball. But as we saw over these past 3 years, there is a very big difference between being a good assistant head coach to actually being the head coach. And that's not to say that assistants can't work out. John Shire took over for Coach K at Duke. He's doing just fine. He was recently named the ACC Coach of the Year. Jay Lucas was another assistant at Duke working under John Shire. And he's a first-year head coach at Miami. Seems like he knows what he's doing. But in general, for Syracuse, given the state of the program right now, it has been 5 years since they have made the NCAA tournament. They need to hire someone with legitimate head coach experience. It's already going to be hard enough for the new head coach to turn around the culture of this program right now, to change it, to get this team back to where they once were, or at least close to what they once were. It's already going to be hard enough. Don't make the new head coach also have to learn how to be a head coach. I think under the right circumstances, it can work with an assistant becoming a head coach. But in this circumstance, I think it is required that the new head coach of Syracuse basketball has prior head coach experience. Moving on to number 2, what we can learn from the Adrian Autry era: substantial financial support is required. Again, it was not all on Adrian Autry. This is a program that did not significantly step up its NIL and its spending until this past season, where John Wildhack, the athletic director, seems pretty confident that they were upper half in the league in spending, which is very good, I guess, compared to the rest of college basketball, considering the ACC is having a very good year this season. But prior to that, their spending was not enough. And so I think that's why Syracuse felt compelled to give Adrian Autry 3 years, because they felt that they did not do enough around him. They felt that they did not put him in the best position to succeed financially.
College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings, and there's early tip-offs, and there's late-night West Coast shootouts. There's always action on the board, and now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits what's going on that night, whatever fits your mood in the moment. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then apply the profit boost and instantly bump up that potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game.
Welcome back to the Big 6 and 60. Arizona State fired coach Bobby Hurley after the Sun Devils lost by 49 points to Iowa State in the Big 12 tournament. Hurley leaves the ASU after 11 seasons, and Phil Mulford looks at what's next on Locked On Sun Devils.
I love records. Records are great. I love setting records, except when it is the biggest deficit that has ever happened in the Big 12 tournament, and we're on the losing side of it.
Yeah, I mean, a game was played today. Can't say for a matter of fact that both teams gave it their full effort, but one thing's for certain, and that is that this is a almost poetic end to this, to what might be the end of the Bobby Hurley era. There's all these rumors floating around. We'll see in the coming hours, but in the past, 2 out of the last 3 games, you've played Iowa State, and you lost by a combined 70 points to the same team. And one of them was a 21-point loss, doing some quick math, a 49-point loss in Kansas City to the Cyclones. And I asked you a question before the show started, Phil, and that was, when you get your butt whooped, how much of it is on you and how much of it is on how good the other team is? And you said, you had a very good point. Iowa State is not 50 points better than this Arizona State team.
Hell, I mean, we went and we were up 3 of them at the half in the Hilton Center, right? In the Hilton Coliseum or whatever it's called, on senior nights. And we're up 3 at the half, and ASU's firing on all the cylinders. We're shooting 60% from the field. And then the next 3 halves of basketball are some of the worst basketball I've ever seen in my life. Like, yeah. I do not want to. I mean, look, these players, they've played their hearts out this year. I'm not trying to denigrate them, but when you have more turnovers, when you give up more turnovers in a half, then you score points in a half, something is going wrong. That's not an effort question. I mean, yes, it was very clear that by pretty quickly into this game, ASU had kind of given up. But that's not a points, like, that is not a effort problem right there. That is a coaching problem, and that is a scheming problem. If you watch this game, ASU was starting their basketball behind the half, or they were starting their offense behind the half court line because Iowa State's defense was so oppressive. That's a scheming problem. All right, Bobby Hurley or whoever's drawing up the plays there had to have something prepared for that. And it just, more turnovers than points through the first 10 minutes is insane.
Yeah, and we thought the story going into this game would be how ASU would stop Iowa State defensively. Well, it turned the other way around, because how does Jop and Mo Odom only combine for 10 points? Wait, 10 points of the 42 scored.
The important question here, how does Odom only have 2 points when he fouls out?
Yeah.
He fouled out of that game, by the way. I don't think he's fouled out. I should have checked this before the show. I don't think he's fouled out this year in any game.
He only played 30 minutes. Only played 30 minutes. He's never done that. Lowest minutes total.
Plus, flagrant foul by Jackson. I think Jop got it. We had 2 technicals, one on Jop for responding, one on Hurley for being Hurley. And look, I am so frustrated right now, and I think you are too, because we've seen what the Sun Devils can. We've seen what Jackson. We've seen what Johnson. We've seen what Pig Johnson and Odom and Jop can do in big games this year. Look, Kansas, Texas Tech, even first half against Iowa State. And then it just disappears. It all goes away. Even in the Baylor game, I mean, their season was on the line. They played that game, even if it was a little bit sloppy at the end. They played it so much better than they had in the regular season. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, great. We might not beat Iowa State, but I think it's going to be competitive.
Yeah, I agree. There's few words that can express what's going on, but to just nail at the point on how atrocious this game was, 5% from beyond the arc. Garabovich had the only 3-pointer, 1 for 19. But to like shed some light and shout out a Sun Devil that had a good game, Santiago Truitt. Yes, I know 2 for 6 from the field, but he played ASU's game. He got to the free throw line 10 times. There was only one other Sun Devil to go to the free throw line in this game, and it was Alan Mukeba. ASU only went to the line 12 times, and 9 of the 11 makes that ASU had was Santiago Truitt. I mean, shout out to Truitt leading the way. He's kind of he's been a starter for the Sun Devils for a majority of the season, but he's more so done his role, filled in the gaps, shined in the moments when he's allowed to shine. But he was the main offensive force in this game, and he led the Sun Devils with 13 points, which is not a low scoring total, and it makes sense because the scoring total for the Sun Devils was an abysmal 42.
Yeah, you talk about 5% from beyond the arc here, Parker. You know what? You know what's the even more depressing stat? 0%. Because that was the first half. Man, I made the mistake of looking at a live thread about this game on the college basketball subreddit, and the Arizona fans were having a field day, posting screenshots, calling out the bad stats, which is fair enough. It was miserable. I really wanted to turn it off. I couldn't because we had to go talk. We had to be prepared to talk about this at the end of the day. But Parker, more generally, what a fitting ending, right? I hate this. This is not fun. It is not a fun time to be a Sun Devil basketball fan today. But as we take a look at Bobby Hurley, if you want to put a nightcap on all of this, this was a game that was undisciplined. This was a game that was a bunch of people trying to take their shots and see if it was going to happen or not. This was a game with technical fouls, flagrant fouls. And as much as I hate to say it, because I think Bobby Hurley's highs have been awesome, and I really enjoyed his first, couple of 5-6 years here, really up through COVID. Is that not emblematic of the Bobby Hurley experience? Is that not emblematic of what we've been getting out of him for the last, really his entire tenure?
It's a perfect reflection. And as much of the first 3 quarters of the game against Kansas and Texas Tech were the highs of the Bobby Hurley era, where it's teams that don't really have the talent of the other teams, but are still bringing it to the other guys and being like, hey, we're going to take you down. We're going to storm the court. Games like this, where it's a 91-42 loss at a neutral site, are just so humbling. And it humanizes what it's like to be an ASU fan, because now it's just like, okay, it's the final nail in the coffin. If there was any doubt that this team needs to move over with, it's this. Because every single problem that Bobby Hurley's had, the chemistry, not reaching his guys, coaching, culture questions, it came through in this game because their team was outcoached, they were outplayed, and they were undisciplined. And if you lose in all 3 facets of those games, you're not gonna win a basketball game. Not gonna win a basketball game, and you're not gonna establish a culture, and you might lose your job.
Yeah, and before we move on and start talking about the future a little bit, I do want to take a moment to talk about the team as a whole, because this was not last year's team. This was not the number 7 ranked recruited team in the country. Look, Pig Johnson, who was probably the second most impactful player this entire year behind Mo Odom, coming off the bench every single game, having these big games. He was picked off like an Instagram reel by Bobby Hurley's son playing the NIA, and he comes in here, never recruited, has a great year. Same is true of a lot of these players. And that is also, I think, emblematic of the last 9 years. You get these guys that maybe should have gotten a bigger shot than they got, but they go and they take advantage of it and they play well. And I just feel bad for them. Like, yes, Peg Johnson had the flagrant, and that's not great. Frustration's there. There's a technical job. Shouldn't have said whatever he said. Don't know what he said. But these guys come in, and I think they have the talent. I think they had the work ethic to go hang with Iowa State. I think they were just let down. Something was wrong. And yes, 24 hours after playing an emotional game is not easy. But I think they were just let down. So all the credit in the world to these guys. This was a tough season. I thought, on a whole, I think I was pretty impressed with what we were able to put together. But
this is what, to your point, this is one of my favorite ASU teams out there. All the credit to all the guys. I know we kind of give them a hard time, but it comes from a place of passion because we see the how hard these guys work, and we want them to do well. And it's just a shame that their season might come to an end. We don't know with what tournaments they might get invited to later on, but that's a big question mark where their coach will go, how many of them will stay. But as you said, these guys are dogs, and they fight hard, and they were an enjoyable team to watch. But it's a sad note to end on if this is the last game that they played, because there's only 3 times that they've been boat raced, and that was BYU, Houston, and Iowa State. And by boat raced, I mean from beginning to end, there was no shot. Only 3 times this season, and it's a shame that what might be the last game of the year was one of those boat races.
That's all for today's Big 6 in 60. If you follow basketball, football, or college sports, the Big 3 in 30 has a half hour on the biggest news in the NFL, the NBA, and on campus, going up every weekday just like this one. Just search the Big 3 in 30 NBA, the Big 3 in 30 NFL, or the Big 3 in 30 college, wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 6 in 60.